Welcome to Talking Books TV. I'm your host, Michelle Vandebass, and today we're going to find out how to find a rare, possibly valuable painting at a garage sale or when you're out thrifting at thrift stores. My guest is Les Fox. He's the author of the Art Hunter's Handbook, How to Buy Art for $5 and Sell It for $1 million. And of course, the question on everyone's mind is, Les, how do you do that?
Well, that's a pretty good idea, and some people do. On the cover of our book is a painting that someone actually did find at a garage sale for $5 and sold to a museum for $1 million. Hopefully, a lot of people who read my book will find $1,000 paintings. If you buy a book for $16 and you find a $1,000 painting, that's not a bad deal either.
Les, tell me what you look for when you go to a thrift store or garage sale, because in the book you've got some really interesting tips about to look at the back, look for staples. Talk about that for a minute, what we should look for.
Okay, well, many people have difficulty identifying an original painting compared to a print because essentially the image is the same. But an original painting, and we're usually talking about oil paintings, most valuable paintings are oil paintings. You can feel the oil painting. With your hand, you can just put your hand on the canvas and feel it. But if you turn it on the back, the canvas would be either stapled, or if it's at least 50 or 60 years old, it would be nailed to a wooden stretcher, which is the inner wooden frame. And that tells you that at least you have an original. From that point, everything is about who painted the painting and not really how beautiful the painting is. The ugliest Picasso is worth considerably more than the most beautiful painting that you or I or most artists could ever paint, because a famous artist is just more valuable than a non-famous artist. So people need to find the artist's name and then contact us or go on Ask Art, which is the primary database that we refer to. It has 240,000 different artists who are all in museums and all have auction records. And if an artist is listed on Ask Art, their paintings are probably worth, oil paintings are probably worth at least $500 or $1,000, and maybe much more than that. Maybe not $1 million, but there's lots of paintings that are worth $10,000 and $20,000 that people would not imagine are that valuable unless they look them up.
One of the things, Les, you talk about in the book that I think is really interesting is modern art often gets passed by because we just look at it and it looks like blocks or circles, but they can in fact be very valuable.
There's tons of modern art. I mean, we're talking about millions of paintings that were done as recently as the 60s and 70s, which was when abstract and modern art really started to become popular. And people back in the 60s and 70s, we get contacted by lots of people who bought that stuff and didn't know that it was valuable and found out it was worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. A lot of it was bought for $50 or $100 at the time. A lot of artists that weren't famous.
What do we look for in a modern art painting to know whether it's valuable? Is it just the name, or are there other clues?
No, it really is just the name. As people develop an eye for art, even weird-looking modern art starts to present itself as something that was done by a talented, accomplished artist. But really the most important thing, someone recently offered us a painting by a woman named Shirley Jaffe, and honestly, when it was offered to us and it turned up in the neighborhood, I didn't know who Shirley Jaffe was, and I looked her up, and she has been exhibited at the Whitney Museum, the Museum of Modern Art, and her paintings have sold for at least $5,000 or $10,000. Some have sold for more than that. And I had no idea when the person sent me the picture that it was that valuable. It was basically just a bunch of lines and slashes. And turns out Shirley Jaffe is quite a famous, a fairly famous, not like Picasso, but a fairly famous modern artist. So I was even surprised that she was one of the 240,000 artists that we didn't know who she was.
Yeah, there's so many of those. And in the book, you've got some great examples of artists that we may never have heard of. And one of the things I love is you actually put an example of the signature of some of these artists that you know of that we can look out for at garage sales. And so even if we can't quite read the name, we can look and see if we can make out the signature and then continue to do some research.
Yeah, in most cases you can read the artist's name. If you can't, it's usually an indication that it's not a famous artist, but we encourage people to email us pictures of paintings that they think might be valuable, and sometimes we can read the name after all.
If you're at a garage sale, I know this has happened to me and probably many other people, and you see a painting and you just don't know whether to buy it or not buy it, and maybe it's like 75 or $100, so it's more than just a $5 painting. How do you know? Are you supposed to like Google right there and when you're in the middle of the garage sale? And what if you
Okay.
can't find out anything? Should you take the risk?
Okay, well, these days people have all kinds of handheld devices that have Google on it, and so you can look it up that way. But besides Google, we encourage people to go on a website called AskArt, AskArt.com, and there are 240,000 artists there. There's a subscription fee, and we'll look artists up for people, without any cost to the people who contact us. But if people are going to start doing this a lot, they may want to pay the weekly or monthly subscription fee. And if the artist is not listed on AskArt, then there's a pretty good chance they're not that valuable, because that's 240,000 artists over 5 million auction records. And they can see a lot of things without even paying for it, just such as if you looked up Shirley Jaffe, she'll turn up and you'll at least see that Shirley Jaffe is in museums and that she has auction records. And that means she's worth, most likely, in the thousands of dollars.
And that's one example of somebody who might end up having a painting worth several $1,000s, but you've actually had some pretty good success stories. A woman at a hot dog stand ended up with a really valuable painting. Tell us about a couple of your success stories.
Well, that's on the title page of our book. Is a picture of Allison Bledsoe, who called me one day and she said, she said, I just got a pretty interesting painting, and I think the name is Fern Coppage. And I have a painting here by Fern Coppage that Sue and I have in our own collection that was found in an attic in Pennsylvania. I'll tell you about that in a second. But Allison said, hold on a minute, I have to put some mustard on some hot dogs. And I think she had just bought this painting for maybe a few $100s, this Fern Coppage. It was titled October. And she said this, she emailed us pictures of it. And as it turned out, we helped her sell it at auction for $30,000 last December at a Pennsylvania auction. Then we recently got a painting from a man, an 85-year-old man on Long Island. It was a painting of crashing waves, and he had bought it with a house that he back in the 1970s, he had bought a house for $3,000. And this painting was in the attic, and he kept it for, 40 years. It turned out to be by William Trost Richards, the second most famous marine painter in American Hudson River School. And we also put it up it just sold at an auction with Heritage Auctions for just last week. It sold for $27,000.
Well, we all want a success story like that. Now, people can find you at AmericanArtAdvisor.com, which is a website full of resources. But before someone contacts you, what should they prepare? What should they need to know before they contact you? What should they have ready?
Well, they can contact us anyway, just if they want help. But as I said, if they go on AskArt.com and see whether the artist whose name is on the painting is listed on AskArt, then most likely there's going to be some value to the painting. It may be hundreds, it may be thousands, it may be $1 million or more, we don't know. But if they're not on that website, there's a better chance that it's not that valuable. And if they can't read the signature, we'll try to read it, but often if you can't read the signature, it turns out to be a dead end, because you have to know who the artist is. And if there's a label on the back, that would be helpful. If there's any documentation or invoices or anything about the history of a painting, that adds value, and it makes it easier to do the research on what they have.
Les, why should we use you then? I mean, if I can go to AskArt.com myself and I can read the signature, then what do I need you for?
Well, we pay the fees on AskArt, so we'll be happy to look things up for people and do comparisons of dozens or hundreds of comparable auctions. You can spend hours on AskArt trying to find paintings that are pretty close to in size, subject matter of what you found. But we also get involved with helping people sell their paintings at auction, and I think they can do better with us as a partner in putting paintings up at auctions than in selling it themselves to Sotheby's or Christie's, consigning it to Sotheby's or Christie's, because we actually get involved as partners. We actually do financing, and we wind up helping in doing the marketing and promotion. And I believe in many cases we can get people 50% to 100% more for paintings than if they try to market them themselves.
Okay, I've got to go write down and look around my house, look at all my paintings and start looking them up
Please.
and see what I got there. Thanks so much, Les, for being a guest on Talking
Sure.
Books TV today. And I want people to go to your website, AmericanArtAdvisor.com. I want to make sure I get that right. Here's the book, The Art Hunter's Handbook, and go buy that painting for $5 and see if it's worth thousands. Thanks for being a guest today.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle.